The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers for the third time, clattering against the concrete driveway like a gunshot in the midnight silence. I wiped my hands on the oil-stained rag and squinted at the rusted undercarriage of my pickup truck. 22 years as a mechanic, and I still couldn't fix the one thing that mattered most: my marriage. Through the kitchen window, I could see Jennifer pacing back and forth, her silhouette sharp against the yellow light. Our daughter Sam sat at the table, her laptop open, probably updating her social media with another passive-aggressive post about her embarrassing family situation. "I should have married Bryan." Jennifer's voice cut through the night air like a rusty blade. At least he made something of himself instead of crawling under cars for pocket change. I let out a bitter laugh that echoed off the garage walls. Bryan Mitchell, her high school sweetheart, who'd crawled back to town 6 months ago with his fancy suits and empty promises about some tech startup that had probably crashed harder than my credit score. The kitchen door slammed, and Sam emerged, her face twisted with that particular brand of 20-something righteousness that made my jaw clench. "Dad, you need to do something," she said, crossing her arms. "Mom's miserable, and frankly, so am I. This whole situation is embarrassing." Embarrassing? I wiped my hands slowly, buying time to process her words. What exactly is embarrassing, Sam? "Look around." She gestured at our modest craftsman house with its peeling paint and overgrown lawn. "Mrs. Patterson next door keeps asking me when you're going to fix the fence. The Hendersons whisper about Mom working late again. Everyone knows something's wrong." I glanced toward the Henderson house, where a curtain twitched back into place. In a neighborhood like ours, gossip spread faster than oil stains on concrete. Every divorce, every affair, every financial struggle became public entertainment for people with nothing better to do than peer through their windows and judge their neighbors. Maybe if your mother spent less time comparing me to her ex-boyfriend and more time remembering why she married me in the first place, we wouldn't have this problem, I said. Sam rolled her eyes. "Bryan's successful, Dad. He drives a BMW, lives in that new high-rise downtown, and actually has ambition. Can you blame her for wondering what might have been?" The words hit me like a punch to the gut, but I kept my expression neutral. 23 years of marriage, and my own daughter was taking sides, and it wasn't mine. "Your mother made her choice a long time ago," I said quietly. "If she regrets it, that's her problem, not mine." But even as I said it, I knew things had gone too far. The late nights at the office, the secretive phone calls, the way Jennifer flinched when I touched her, all the signs were there, written in neon letters across my supposedly stable life. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Sam disappeared back into the house, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the smell of motor oil. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Jennifer's social media, something I'd started doing obsessively over the past few weeks. Her latest post showed her at some wine bar downtown, laughing with her girlfriends Lisa and Michelle. The caption read, "Sometimes you need good friends to remind you what happiness looks like." The comment section was a minefield of suburban passive aggression. "You deserve better, girl," from Lisa. "Life's too short to settle," from Michelle. And then, buried among the heart emojis and supportive messages, a comment that made my stomach drop. "Looking forward to catching up properly soon. B. Bryan." Right there in the open, flirting with my wife on social media for everyone to see. I screenshotted the exchange and sent it to Bryan's direct messages with a simple note. "Saw your comment. Maybe you should know that Jennifer's still married. Thought you'd want to avoid any awkwardness." His response came back within minutes. "Tell her I'm engaged to someone who doesn't compare partners to their exes. Also, I remember why I left this town the first time." I stared at the message, a slow smile spreading across my face. Bryan was engaged? This was perfect. I walked back into the house, where Jennifer was loading the dishwasher with aggressive efficiency. "Got a message for you," I said, holding up my phone. "From Bryan." Her face went pale, then flushed red. "What did you do?" "Just passed along his response to your little flirtation session on social media." I read his message aloud, savoring every word. "Sounds like your knight in shining armor isn't interested in rescuing you after all." Jennifer's hands shook as she gripped the counter. "You had no right." "I had every right. You're still my wife, even if you seem to forget that most days." She turned on me with a fury I hadn't seen since our early years together, back when we still fought because we cared enough to fight. "This is exactly why I can't stand being around you anymore," she screamed. "You're petty and jealous, and you can't handle the fact that other people have actually made something of their lives." "Other people like Bryan?" "Yes, like Bryan. He took risks. He built something. He didn't just give up and settle for fixing other people's broken things." The irony wasn't lost on me. "Funny thing about fixing broken things," I said quietly. "Sometimes you realize they can't be fixed. Sometimes you have to throw them away and start over." Jennifer's eyes narrowed. "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. And here's another fact. Your precious Bryan is engaged to someone else. So whatever fantasy you've been building in your head, it's time to wake up." I left her standing in the kitchen and headed to bed, but sleep wouldn't come. Through the thin walls, I could hear Jennifer on the phone, her voice low and urgent. She was probably calling Lisa or Michelle, spinning the story to make me look like the villain. By morning, half the neighborhood would know about our fight, and by evening, the other half would have their own theories about what was really going on. In a town like ours, reputation was everything. And mine was about to become the casualty in a war I hadn't even known I was fighting. The next morning brought rain and a text message that changed everything. I was under the hood of a customer's Camaro at Peterson's auto shop when my phone buzzed. The message was from an unknown number, but the content made my hands freeze on the wrench. "Your wife and Bryan were at the Marriott downtown yesterday. Room 237. Thought you should know. A friend." Attached were 3 photos: Jennifer's car in the hotel parking lot, Bryan walking through the lobby, and a blurry shot of them together in the elevator. My chest tightened as I stared at the evidence of what I'd suspected but hadn't wanted to believe. "Danny, you okay?" Pete Peterson's gruff voice cut through my shock. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I slipped the phone back into my pocket and forced a smile. Just tired. Late night. But Pete had been running this shop for 30 years, and he could read people like diagnostic codes. Trouble at home? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Jennifer's name flashed on the screen, and I almost didn't pick up. Almost. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "I'm coming to the shop." "I'm working." "This can't wait. I'll be there in 10 minutes." She hung up before I could protest. Pete raised an eyebrow but didn't comment. In a small shop like ours, personal drama was just another occupational hazard. Jennifer arrived exactly 10 minutes later, her hair pulled back in a severe bun, and her face set in the expression she wore when she was about to deliver bad news. She worked in HR at a mid-sized insurance company downtown, and she'd perfected the art of professional coldness. "We need to discuss what happened last night," she said, ignoring Pete's curious stare. "Your behavior was completely inappropriate." I wiped my hands on a shop rag and studied her face. "My behavior? That's interesting, considering what I learned this morning." Something flickered in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or guilt. "What are you talking about?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos. Her face went white, then red, then white again. For a moment, she looked like she might faint. "Where did you get these?" "Does it matter?" "The question is, how long has this been going on?" Pete cleared his throat. "Maybe you two should take this outside." "No," Jennifer said sharply. "This won't take long." She turned back to me, and I was surprised to see tears in her eyes. "Danny, I can explain." "Explain what? That you've been having an affair? That you've been lying to me for months while making me feel like everything wrong in our marriage was my fault? It's not what you think. Really. Because what I think is that my wife has been sleeping with her ex-boyfriend while telling everyone in town what a loser her husband is. The tears started flowing then, but they didn't move me the way they once would have. Danny, please, let's go home and talk about this properly. Home? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You mean the house where you've been planning your exit strategy while I've been trying to figure out how to save our marriage? Jennifer glanced around the shop, suddenly aware that Pete and 2 customers were watching our domestic drama unfold. You're making a scene. I'm making a scene? Lady, you haven't seen anything yet. She left without another word, but I knew this was far from over. Within an hour, my phone started buzzing with messages from people I hadn't heard from in months. Jennifer had clearly been busy, because suddenly everyone wanted to check on me or offer their support or ask if the rumors were true. The rumors. In a town like ours, rumors were currency, and Jennifer had just made me rich in all the wrong ways. By lunchtime, I'd received calls from my brother in Chicago, my ex-army buddy Mike, and 3 neighbors who claimed they were just checking in. The message was clear. Jennifer had gone nuclear, and I was ground zero. I drove home during my lunch break to find Sam waiting for me in the kitchen, her laptop open and her expression serious. Dad, we need to talk about Mom's Facebook post. My stomach dropped. What Facebook post? Sam turned her laptop around, and I found myself staring at a photo of Jennifer with tears streaming down her face. The caption was a masterpiece of manipulation. Sometimes the people closest to you become strangers, dealing with some difficult situations at home. Please keep our family in your thoughts and prayers. The comments section was already exploding with support for Jennifer and thinly veiled criticism of me. Stay strong, girl. You deserve so much better. Some men never grow up. Is Danny giving you trouble again? Again? I looked at Sam. What does that mean, again? Sam's face reddened. Mom might have mentioned some of your arguments to her friends. What kind of arguments? The usual stuff. Money, your job, the house. She trailed off, but I could see there was more. What else, Sam? She told them you've been jealous and controlling lately, that you go through her phone and accuse her of things. I felt like I'd been punched. I never went through her phone until yesterday, and I only accused her of things after I had proof she was doing them. I know, Dad. I believe you. But Mom's really good at telling her side of the story first. That was an understatement. Jennifer had just painted me as an abusive husband to half the town, and I was only now learning about it. The photos on my phone suddenly made more sense. Someone was trying to level the playing field by giving me ammunition. But who? And why? I spent the rest of the day fielding awkward conversations with customers and co-workers. Everyone was being carefully polite, but I could see the questions in their eyes. Was I really the monster Jennifer was making me out to be? Had I driven my wife into another man's arms? By closing time, I'd made a decision. If Jennifer wanted to play dirty, I could play dirty too. But I was going to be smarter about it. I drove to Murphy's Bowling Alley, a dive bar on the east side of town where my friend Vic spent most evenings. Vic had been a boxer before he inherited the place from his uncle, and he understood the value of strategy in a fight. You look like hell, he said when I walked in. Let me guess, Jennifer? How did you know? Because half my customers have been talking about it all day. Small towns, Danny, everything's public entertainment. I ordered a beer and told him the whole story. Vic listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or shaking his head. So what are you going to do? He asked when I finished. I don't know. Part of me wants to fight for the marriage, but part of me thinks it's already over. Fighting for something and fighting back are 2 different things, Vic said. Sounds like Jennifer's already decided which kind of fight this is going to be. He was right. Jennifer had fired the first shot by turning our private problems into public drama. Now I had to decide whether to surrender or return fire. My phone buzzed with another text from the unknown number. There's more where those came from. Bryan isn't the only one. Check Jennifer's messages with Lisa from her tennis club. I stared at the message, my beer growing warm in my hand. Lisa from the tennis club, one of Jennifer's closest friends and biggest supporters. What could she possibly have to do with this? But as I sat in Vic's dimly lit bar, listening to the sound of bowling pins crashing and the low murmur of conversation, I realized I was about to find out. And something told me that what I discovered was going to change everything. I spent the next morning doing something I'd never done in 23 years of marriage. I went through Jennifer's things. Not her phone, which she kept locked tighter than Fort Knox, but her laptop, which she'd left open on the kitchen table in her rush to get to work. What I found made the hotel photos look like innocent family snapshots. Jennifer's message history with Lisa went back months, and it painted a picture of my wife that I barely recognized. They weren't just complaining about their husbands, they were actively planning their escapes. "Danny's so clueless," one message read. "He actually thinks I'm working late when I'm out with you and Michelle. Sometimes I wonder how he functions without me telling him what to do." Lisa's response: "At least he's harmless. Tom would lose his mind if he knew about our girls' nights. Speaking of which, are you still thinking about reaching out to Bryan?" "Already did. He's interested, but being cautious. Apparently he's engaged, but he says it's complicated." My hands shook as I scrolled through weeks of conversations. Jennifer had been planning this affair for months, discussing strategy with Lisa like they were plotting a military campaign. They'd researched divorce lawyers, calculated asset splits, and even discussed how to make me look like the bad guy in court. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was the contempt. Message after message revealed how little Jennifer thought of me, how embarrassed she was by our life together, how eager she was to trade up to someone more successful. "Bryan's picking me up at the usual spot tomorrow," one recent message read. "I told Danny I'm having lunch with you. Can you cover for me if he asks?" "Of course, but be careful. Tom saw you two at the Marriott last week. He didn't say anything, but he gave me a weird look." Tom, Lisa's husband. He must have been the one sending me the photos, but why help me instead of his own wife? I was still processing this information when Sam walked into the kitchen, dressed for her part-time job at the mall. "Dad? Why are you on Mom's computer?" I closed the laptop and looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. When had she stopped being my little girl and started being Jennifer's accomplice? "Sam, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be honest with me. How long have you known about your mother and Bryan?" Her face went pale. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Please don't lie to me. I've already seen the evidence." Sam sank into a chair across from me, suddenly looking much younger than her 22 years. "A few weeks. I saw them together at that coffee shop downtown. Mom made me promise not to tell you." "Why didn't you?" "Because I thought maybe she deserved to be happy for once." The words hung in the air between us like a challenge. "And you don't think she was happy with me?" "Dad, come on, look around, look at this house, look at our neighborhood, look at your job. Mom's friends are married to lawyers and doctors and business owners. Their husbands take them on vacations and buy them nice things and what? Love them? Take care of them? Stay faithful to them?" Sam's eyes filled with tears. "It's not just about money, Dad. It's about ambition. It's about wanting more from life than just getting by." "Getting by?" I stood up, anger coursing through me like electricity. I've worked 60-hour weeks for 20 years to provide for this family. I've never missed a mortgage payment, never failed to put food on the table, never once raised my hand to either of you. But that's just getting by? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. And it's exactly what your mother thinks. Well, let me tell you something about ambition, Sam. Sometimes the most ambitious thing you can do is keep your promises, even when keeping them is hard. I left her sitting in the kitchen and drove to work, but I couldn't concentrate on the cars in front of me. Every oil change, Every brake job, every diagnostic test reminded me of what Sam had said. Was this really all I'd amounted to? A blue-collar nobody whose wife was embarrassed to be seen with him? Pete noticed my mood immediately. Rough night? Getting rougher by the hour. I told him about the messages I'd found, and Pete listened with the patience of a man who'd seen plenty of marriages crash and burn over the years. "So, what's your next move?" he asked. "I don't know. Part of me wants to confront Jennifer, but part of me wants to see how far this goes first." "Might be smart to gather more evidence before you show your hand," Pete said. "Divorce courts can be tricky, especially when one side's been planning longer than the other." He was right. Jennifer had been building her case against me for months, painting me as a jealous, controlling husband while positioning herself as the victim of an unhappy marriage. If I wanted to survive the coming storm, I needed to be strategic. That evening, I drove to the tennis club where Jennifer and Lisa spent their Thursday nights. I parked across the street and watched through the large windows as they sat at the bar, heads close together, probably planning their next move. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. "Working late tonight. Don't wait up." I took a screenshot of the message, then another of Jennifer laughing with Lisa at the tennis club. The timestamp showed she'd sent the text 5 minutes earlier, while clearly not at work. Another lie to add to my growing collection. I was about to leave when I saw Bryan's BMW pull into the parking lot. He walked into the club like he owned the place, and I watched Jennifer's face light up when she saw him. Lisa made herself scarce, leaving them alone at a corner table. They looked like teenagers sneaking around behind their parents' backs, except they were married adults, destroying families with their selfishness. I took photos through the window, my hands steady despite the rage building in my chest. When I got home, Sam was waiting for me in the living room. "Dad, I owe you an apology." "For what?" "For what I said earlier, and for keeping Mom's secret. I thought I was helping, but I was just making things worse." I sat down beside her on the couch we'd bought when she was 10 years old. "Sam, I need you to understand something. This isn't about money or status or any of that surface stuff. This is about respect, about honesty, about keeping the promises you make to the people you love. I know, and I'm sorry I didn't see that before. There's something else you should know. Your mother isn't just having an affair with Bryan. She's been planning to leave me for months. She's been working with Lisa to make me look like the bad guy so she can get a better deal in the divorce." Sam's face crumpled. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I had no idea it had gone that far. It's not your fault, but I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Are you willing to tell the truth about what you've seen and heard? If this goes to court, I'm going to need witnesses." Sam nodded without hesitation. "Whatever you need, Dad. I'm on your side." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I had an ally in my own family, but I also knew that the real battle was just beginning. Jennifer had been playing chess while I was playing checkers, but now I understood the rules of her game, and I was ready to start playing to win. Friday morning brought a phone call that changed the entire game. I was replacing brake pads on a Honda when my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Danny Martinez?" "Yeah, who's this?" "Tom Patterson, Lisa's husband. We need to talk." Lisa's husband, the one who'd been sending me the photos. I stepped outside the shop for privacy. "I think you know why I'm calling," Tom continued. "Our wives have been playing us for fools, and it's time we did something about it." "What did you have in mind?" "Meet me at Murphy's tonight at 8. Come alone, and don't tell anyone we talked." The line went quiet, leaving me with more questions than answers. But Tom was right about one thing. Our wives had been playing us, and it was time to level the playing field. I spent the rest of the day thinking about strategy. Jennifer was smart, but she'd made a crucial mistake. She'd underestimated me. She saw a blue-collar mechanic who was too simple to match her sophisticated games. She was about to learn how wrong she was. That evening, I found Tom sitting in a back booth at Murphy's, nursing a whiskey and looking like a man who'd aged 10 years in the past month. He was a mid-level manager at the electric company, soft around the middle and balding on top, not the kind of guy you'd expect to mastermind a counterintelligence operation. "Thanks for coming," he said as I slid into the booth. "I wasn't sure you'd show." "Why have you been helping me?" Tom's laugh was bitter. "Because Lisa's been helping your wife destroy you, and I'm next on the list. They think I don't know about their little divorce planning sessions, but I've been listening." He pulled out his phone and showed me a recording app. "Lisa doesn't know I installed this on her phone. I've been documenting everything." "Everything?" "The affair planning, the financial discussions, the strategy sessions about how to make us look like terrible husbands. They've been at this for months, Danny. This isn't just about Bryan. This is about them wanting to trade up to better lives, and we're the obstacles standing in their way." Tom played me a recording of Lisa and Jennifer discussing how to hide assets and maximize alimony payments. My wife's voice was cold and calculating as she described ways to make me look unstable and controlling. "The beauty of it is that Danny's too trusting to see it coming," Jennifer's voice said through the phone speaker. "By the time he realizes what's happening, I'll have everything documented to show he was the problem all along." Lisa's response chilled me. "Same here. Tom thinks we're just having girls' nights, but we're actually building cases against them. My lawyer says emotional abuse is hard to prove, but if we can establish a pattern of controlling behavior—" I felt sick. They weren't just cheating. They were systematically destroying our reputations to improve their divorce settlements. "There's more," Tom said. "Bryan isn't the only one Jennifer's been seeing. She's also been meeting with her boss, Richard Hendricks. Apparently he's been promising her a promotion if she leaves you." "Her boss? But he's married too." "So is Bryan, technically. His engagement is fake, just a cover story to make the affair look more complicated than it is. Jennifer knows about it." The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture of deception that went far deeper than I'd imagined. This wasn't a simple affair. It was a coordinated campaign to destroy my life. "What do you want to do about it?" I asked. Tom smiled for the first time since I'd sat down. "I want to beat them at their own game. They think we're stupid blue-collar guys who'll roll over and take whatever they give us. Let's show them how wrong they are." We spent the next hour planning our counterattack. Tom had been documenting everything for weeks: recordings, photos, financial records, text messages. He'd even hired a private investigator to follow Lisa and Jennifer. "The PI got some interesting footage yesterday," Tom said, showing me his phone. "Jennifer and Lisa at that spa downtown, talking about their exit strategies. But here's the good part. They were talking about Richard Hendricks, too. Apparently he's been skimming money from company accounts to fund his affair with Jennifer. That's embezzlement." "Exactly. And if it comes out, Jennifer goes down with him. She's been helping him hide the transactions through fake expense reports." This was bigger than I'd thought. Jennifer wasn't just cheating on me. She was involved in criminal activity with her boss. The promotion she'd been promised was probably funded with stolen money. "What's the plan?" I asked. Tom outlined a strategy that was both elegant and ruthless. We would document everything, build an airtight case, and then expose them all at once. Not just the affairs, but the financial crimes, the conspiracy to defraud us in divorce proceedings, and the systematic campaign to destroy our reputations. "The key is timing," Tom said. "We need to hit them when they're most vulnerable, when they think they've won." "When's that?" "Tomorrow night. Lisa told me she's having a girls' night at the tennis club, but according to the PI, they're actually having a celebration dinner with Bryan and Richard. They think they've got us beaten, and they're planning to file for divorce next week." I felt a cold smile spread across my face. "Then let's make sure it's a night they'll never forget." We shook hands like generals planning a military campaign. Jennifer thought she was playing chess while I played checkers, but she was about to discover that I'd been learning her game all along. The next 24 hours were going to determine the rest of my life. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was in control of my own destiny, and I was ready to show Jennifer and her accomplices what a simple mechanic could do when he put his mind to it. Saturday evening arrived with the kind of anticipation that makes your skin crawl. I spent the day at the shop, pretending to work on a transmission while actually going over the plan Tom and I had developed. Every detail had to be perfect. We'd only get one shot at this. At 6 o'clock, Jennifer emerged from the bedroom wearing a black dress I'd never seen before and enough perfume to choke a horse. She was trying too hard, which meant tonight was important to her. "Going out with the girls again?" I asked innocently. "Just Lisa and Michelle, tennis club dinner." She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Don't wait up." I watched her drive away, then immediately called Tom. "She's on her way." "Lisa left 10 minutes ago. The PI confirmed Bryan and Richard are already at Romano's downtown. Table for 6 in the back corner." Romano's was the kind of upscale restaurant where Jennifer always claimed we couldn't afford to eat. Apparently, she could afford it just fine when someone else was paying. I drove to the restaurant and parked where I could see through the large front windows. Tom arrived 5 minutes later in his pickup truck, carrying a duffel bag full of equipment. "You sure about this?" he asked. "Too late to back out now." Through the window, we could see our wives sitting with Bryan, Richard, and 2 women I didn't recognize. They were laughing and toasting with champagne, celebrating what they thought was their victory over the stupid husbands they were about to discard. Tom pulled out a small device that looked like a hearing aid. "Directional microphone, military grade. We'll be able to hear everything they're saying." He aimed it at their table and handed me an earpiece. Within seconds, I could hear Jennifer's voice as clearly as if she were sitting next to me. "Can't believe how easy this has been," she was saying. "Danny still has no idea what's coming. He actually thinks we can work things out." Lisa's laughter was like broken glass. "Tom's the same way. He keeps trying to plan date nights and romantic weekends. It would be pathetic if it wasn't so convenient." "The important thing is that we stick to the timeline," Richard's voice cut in. He sounded nervous, which made sense considering he was embezzling company funds to finance this whole operation. "The transfers need to be completed before the divorce papers are filed." "What about Bryan's situation?" one of the unknown women asked. "Handled," Bryan replied. "The engagement was always just for show. Once Jennifer's divorce is final, we can go public." I looked at Tom, who was recording everything on his phone. His face was grim but determined. "The lawyers think we can get at least 60% of their assets," Lisa continued, "especially once we present evidence of their controlling and emotionally abusive behavior." "What evidence?" the other unknown woman asked. Jennifer's smile was visible even from across the street. "We've been documenting everything for months. Every argument, every time they raised their voices, every instance of jealousy or suspicion. By the time we're done, they'll look like monsters." "And if they try to fight back?" Bryan asked. "They won't," Richard said confidently. "They're blue-collar guys. They don't have the resources or sophistication to mount a real defense. They'll take whatever settlement we offer and slink away quietly." That was the moment I stopped feeling hurt and started feeling angry. Not just angry, furious. They weren't just betraying us. They were laughing about it, celebrating their ability to manipulate and destroy the men who'd loved and trusted them. Tom must have seen something in my expression because he grabbed my arm. "Easy, Danny. Stick to the plan." I nodded, but inside I was calculating. The plan we'd discussed was good, but it wasn't enough. These people didn't just deserve to be exposed, they deserved to be humiliated. We listened for another hour as they discussed their strategy in detail. Jennifer and Lisa would file for divorce on Monday, claiming emotional abuse and irreconcilable differences. Richard would provide Jennifer with a promotion and salary increase to help her case, funded by money he'd been skimming from company accounts. Bryan would testify about my threatening behavior when I'd contacted him weeks ago. It was a coordinated attack designed to destroy Tom and me financially and socially. They'd thought of everything, except the possibility that we might be smart enough to fight back. At 8:30, they paid their bill and prepared to leave. Tom and I followed at a distance as they walked to Bryan's BMW and Richard's Mercedes. The plan was apparently to continue the celebration at Bryan's downtown condo. "This is it," Tom said. "You ready?" I thought about everything I'd heard, everything they'd planned, everything they were about to do to destroy my life and reputation. Then I thought about Sam, who'd finally chosen to stand with me, and Vic, who taught me that sometimes you have to fight back to survive. "I'm ready." Tom pulled out his phone and started making calls. The first was to Richard's boss at the insurance company, a man Tom knew from their weekly poker game. The second was to a reporter at the local newspaper who specialized in exposing corruption. The third was to the private investigator, who was waiting with additional evidence we'd need for what came next. But I had my own calls to make. The first was to Sam, who was standing by with her laptop and social media accounts. The second was to Vic, who'd agreed to help with the final phase of our plan. By tomorrow morning, Jennifer and her conspirators would wake up to a very different world than the one they'd gone to sleep in. They thought they were playing chess while we played checkers, but they were about to discover that we'd been playing a completely different game all along. And in our game, the mechanics always won. Sunday morning dawned gray and cold, matching my mood as I sat in my truck outside Bryan's downtown condo building. Tom was parked across the street, both of us waiting for the moment when our carefully laid plans would either succeed spectacularly or blow up in our faces. At exactly 9 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from Sam. "Articles are live, social media posts are scheduled, Mom's going to lose her mind." The first article appeared in the Sunday edition of the Herald, written by investigative reporter Janet Walsh. Local insurance executive under investigation for embezzlement. The story detailed Richard Hendricks's scheme to siphon company funds through fake expense reports, with Jennifer Martinez listed as a person of interest in the investigation. The second article, published online simultaneously, was titled "Divorce Fraud Scheme Exposed." It outlined how Jennifer and Lisa had conspired to fabricate evidence of emotional abuse to improve their divorce settlements, complete with audio recordings of their planning sessions. But the real masterpiece was Sam's social media campaign. She'd spent the night creating a detailed timeline of Jennifer's deception, complete with screenshots of text messages, photos from the hotel, and audio clips from Tom's recordings. The post was titled, "My Mother's Double Life, A Daughter's Perspective on Betrayal and Lies." Within an hour, both articles were trending on local social media. Jennifer's carefully crafted image as the victim of an unhappy marriage was crumbling in real time as the evidence of her deception spread across the internet. At 10:30, Jennifer's car pulled out of Bryan's parking garage, followed closely by Lisa's SUV. Both women looked frantic, probably trying to figure out how their secret had been exposed. I followed Jennifer home, arriving just as she was storming through the front door. I could hear her screaming at Sam before I even got out of the truck. "How could you do this to me? I'm your mother." "And he's my father." Sam's voice was steady despite the chaos. "Did you really think you could destroy him, and I'd just stand by and watch?" I walked into the kitchen to find Jennifer clutching her phone, her face red with fury and panic. When she saw me, her expression shifted from anger to something approaching fear. "You did this," she said. "You ruined everything." "I didn't ruin anything," I replied calmly. "I just exposed what you'd already done. Those recordings are illegal. You can't use them in court. Tom made them on his own phone, which is perfectly legal. And even if they weren't admissible, the court of public opinion doesn't require the same standards of evidence." Jennifer's phone had been buzzing constantly since I walked in. Her friends, her co-workers, her family, everyone wanted to know if the stories were true. The woman who'd spent months painting me as a controlling, abusive husband was now scrambling to explain why she'd been caught planning to defraud me in divorce court. "This isn't over," she said, her voice shaking with rage. "Richard has lawyers. Bryan has connections. We'll fight this." "With what money?" I asked. "Richard's been suspended pending investigation, and his assets are frozen. Bryan's fake engagement just became public knowledge, so his real fiancée is probably not feeling very generous right now. And you're about to be unemployed and possibly facing criminal charges." The reality of her situation was finally sinking in. Jennifer had burned every bridge, betrayed every ally, and destroyed every relationship in pursuit of what she thought would be a better life. Now she was standing in the ruins of her own making, with nowhere left to run. "I want you out of this house," I said quietly. "Today. You can't throw me out. I have rights." "Actually, you don't. The house is in my name, bought with my credit and my down payment. You've been committing adultery and conspiracy to commit fraud. Any lawyer worth his fee will tell you that you're lucky I'm not pressing charges." Jennifer looked around the kitchen like she was seeing it for the first time, the modest appliances, the worn countertops, the simple life she'd been so eager to escape. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem anymore, but I'd suggest you figure it out quickly because the reporters are going to want statements, and I don't think you want to give them from my front porch." Jennifer gathered her things in silence, occasionally glaring at Sam, who stood by the window watching the neighbors peek through their curtains. The gossip mill was already working overtime, and by evening everyone in town would know the real story of our marriage. As Jennifer loaded her car, my phone rang. It was Tom. "How's it going over there?" he asked. "Jennifer's packing. How about Lisa?" "Gone. Left about an hour ago with 2 suitcases and a lot of threats about lawyers. But here's the interesting part. Bryan called her while she was packing. Apparently, his real fiancée found out about the affair and called off their engagement. He's blaming Lisa and Jennifer for ruining his life." I couldn't help but smile. Honor among thieves, right? Gets better. Richard's wife filed for divorce this morning and took the kids to her mother's house. His boss called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow, and the district attorney's office just announced they're opening a formal investigation into the embezzlement charges. The house of cards was collapsing exactly as we'd planned. Jennifer and her conspirators had spent months building their strategy, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated the men they were trying to destroy. Jennifer finished loading her car and stood in the driveway for a moment, looking back at the house she'd been so eager to leave. When she saw me watching from the window, she mouthed a single word. "Why?" I opened the window and gave her the answer she deserved. "Because you forgot that mechanics know how to fix things, and sometimes fixing something means taking it completely apart first." She drove away without another word, leaving behind the wreckage of 23 years of marriage and the ruins of her carefully constructed lies. Sam came and stood beside me at the window. "Do you think she'll be okay?" I thought about everything Jennifer had done, everything she'd planned, everyone she'd been willing to hurt in pursuit of what she thought was a better life. "She made her choices," I said. "Now she gets to live with the consequences." Outside, the neighbors were still watching, still whispering, still trying to piece together the drama that had unfolded in their quiet little neighborhood. But for the first time in months, I didn't care what they thought. I'd fought back, and I'd won. Not just the battle, but the war. And sometimes, that's all a man can ask for. The mechanic had fixed one last thing, his own life. And this time, the repair was going to last.